All right. I didn't feel like I needed to prepare that much for you because
It will just go natural. Huh?
kind of hung out. Well, we've hung out a few times. Yeah. So you're now Dr. Fahim.
Yes. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
a huge
you.
accomplishment, man.
It is. When yesterday I was just reflecting of not all the steps, some of the steps, and then when you look back, whoa, this was a lot. And
How long of a journey has it been for you
I started 2017
with your PhD work?
with my PhD work. I did my Th.M 2016 and 17,
Yeah.
and 17 started my PhD work August 17.
Mm-hmm.
And it was supposed to be 4 or 5 years, but then COVID hit. And so almost 1 year was off. I was in Egypt. And
During COVID.
during COVID, I was in Egypt.
Yeah.
I was planning to come in 2020 to do my comprehensive exams and to finish and to write, to do German. But then I couldn't get a visa appointment in the embassy. And it was very busy with the ministry and writing and teaching in Egypt.
The ministry in Egypt.
The ministry in Egypt. So
Yeah.
almost 1 year as if you hit pause, nothing, almost nothing, not a page, nothing in the PhD. And then continue 2021.
Was that hard for you? Because I'm assuming you had built up some good momentum for the first 2 or 3 years.
Oh yeah,
And then basically a year off.
yes.
Because the work of, speaking from experience, the work of ministry and just family responsibilities and just, or let's say secular work, and is very different from the
Academic.
headspace of academic work.
Yes, it has been very challenging. I remember when I was finishing my Th.M and applied for the PhD, Dr. B.Th said, Sherif, are you sure you want to go back to Egypt during the coursework? Because I insisted I want to go back through the coursework and just come to do the classes for intensives and go back home to write the papers while doing my work and ministry in Egypt. And he said, you'll be distracted. I told him, well, I don't want to stay here for 5-6 years with my family. It will be super hard to return then. So he said, okay, it will be challenging. Just promise me to keep 1 or 2 days for your PhD. Of course, this didn't work most of the time. But then I finished most of the coursework except one class. And then COVID hit. I was planning to finish it here and to continue. So then, as you said, I lost a lot of the momentum.
Yeah.
And it was lots of frustration, but then the Lord providentially opened the door to get my visa renewed, and we were able to come as a family in 2021.
Mm-hmm. So you're consulting with Joel. Was he your primary supervisor for the PhD?
Th.M. For the Th.M.
For the Th.M.
Yes, he was my main supervisor, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what about the PhD?
I had 3. Michael,
Internal and
these are the supervisors, not the readers.
Okay.
So I had 3 supervisors and 4 readers or 4 examiners.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Why is that unique to PRTS? Because in the British system where I did my PhD is you had one internal plus like your kind of secondary, but at least at Durham, we never really consulted with the secondary. And then you would have, only for the Viva, the final exam, you would have...
2 or 3 or...
Just 2.
Just 2.
You would have a moderator
Yes.
who would be from the university, and then you'd have an internal and external. But that was it.
Yeah.
You had 7.
I had 7. The advisors would never say a word when it comes to the exam. They will just advise you through your work. And usually it's 1. It can be 1. But I chose 3 because my work was a kind of interdisciplinary in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed help from experts in every single area of them.
Yeah.
And this was very helpful. Yes, it is exhausting to work with more than one, but they stretched you in every kind of single chapter that you are working. And then this is the rule in PRTS. You would have 4 examiners, 2 internal, not your advisors, 2 internal and 2 externals. So I had 7 who read my work. 3 were working with me through the way, and 4 gave me the final say.
So what did that look like in your final exam? You didn't have all 7 in a room, did you?
I had 10. I had 10 in the room, but I think this is a
It gets
PRTS
better.
thing. But I knew that they call it the jury. And
No. Really?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this
Countries
is.
that does this. It's like in the Scandinavian countries, or
I don't know.
they have this panel.
It was a panel. So
Wow.
I would be on a pulpit, and then you would have 2 tables, 5 on each, and
you're in the middle.
I am in the middle. And after I did
Is
my
there an audience?
and there's an audience.
No. This is more of a European model, I think.
Yes. So there's an audience, 5 and 5, and 1 on Zoom. And then I did my defense. But I knew early on that 6 will ask me. 6 out of the 10, not everyone. Not my advisors. My advisors were not. 6 will examine me, and it will be my readers, my 4 readers, the 2 internal and 2 externals, and 2 jurors, if I may say, from the school, from PRTS. And of course, it's an hour. The whole thing, it should be an hour.
Okay.
And after an hour, the registrar would stop everything.
So they do limit the time.
They do limit the time. Yeah, it's not endless. But within this hour, I did 10 minutes or 15 minutes presentation.
Yeah.
And then I start to receive questions. I got about 10, 11 questions.
Wow.
This was a lot.
These are people from all different specialties.
Yes, I got Old Testament guys. I got systematic guys. I got New Testament guys. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And our mutual acquaintance, Dave Briones, you mentioned earlier.
Well, yes, David Briones, this was providential again, because you don't choose your readers.
Okay.
Your supervisor,
Yeah.
consult with the readers or choose them. David taught me 1 class in my PhD, in my coursework. You know, the American system, we have coursework, 12 courses. So I did 1 class with David. He was a visiting professor at PRTS. We had a good relationship. Things went well. But then when it came to my dissertation, Dr. Barrett, my supervisor, he consulted with David Briones. Would you be willing to be one of the examiners? And David, even when he accepted, he didn't know that this is me. So I said, okay, I'll take it. Yeah. And then he said, this is Sherif, you know him. He said, oh yeah, I know Sherif. So he sent him the work. And so he was one of my examiners, and he was one of the jury, if I may say, yesterday through Zoom.
So this was yesterday.
Just yesterday.
Are you? Was it exhausting? Are you tired?
Well,
You can
I
be
think
honest.
it went well, better than I expected. Better than I expected. Yes.
Yeah.
But of course, you can't stop the anxiety. At least the 2 days before it, not sleeping well, thinking, going back through your chapters, thinking of what would the questions be.
Yeah.
So
I was so nervous, and I only had 3 people in the room.
whoa.
It was very intimate.
Maybe if you have less people, it may be more nervous. Because
Well, it was because I was sitting as close as you are to me, which is 3 feet,
yes,
and
it's like interrogation.
to one of the most, well-respected,
Who were your examiners?
Philip Alexander,
Okay.
out of Manchester University, who is I've known him for years, but the man is so sharp. Every conference I'd seen him at or been at along with him, he was always the one that you knew when Philip raised his hand. Whoever was presenting that paper was about to get in a very polite British way,
Okay.
but just scalped.
Wow.
Or at least their thesis would get.
And you were sitting with him on
Really-
the table, huh?
And I remember he asked me some questions. In fact, I found it the other day. I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I did press record on my Apple iPhone, and I have a voice note. I think it's almost 2 hours long.
Whoa.
So it was a long one because they really wanted to probe the work. And I appreciate that because it means that they I knew that Philip and I forget the name of the other examiner. Anyway, it'll come to me, but they really cared. They cared enough to just go hard
and deep
and go deep and really penetrate the idea, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And not just superficial, like, oh, you have a typo here, you have a typo there.
Oh.
They didn't really care about that, you know?
No one asked me about the type or something like that. Nothing about that. Yes, and this is helpful. They stretch you.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is you'll get it at some point, I presume, the kind of the debrief or the paper, that the write up.
Oh yeah,
where they're like, hey, here are our notes, and I found that incredibly helpful.
Yes.
In doing revisions. Do you plan to publish the work?
I hope so. I'm still investigating where to go.
Yeah,
Yeah. Have you published yours?
It's with Brill.
Okay.
But it's to be totally honest, it's been hard for me to get back into the work. I finished the PhD and I immediately, actually 3 months later, we got locked down for COVID.
Yes.
And I was launching a business in London. That took all my attention.
Yes.
Trying to somehow resuscitate this business from the very, it's like resuscitating a fetus.
Yes.
Like
yes.
it's born and then it's dying. That's what it felt like because of the whole COVID thing. And
you put all your effort and mind and
yes. And so I really left that behind. I've been picking away at it recently, but
yes, I'm still looking for several places. I was torn between shall I publish it academically or for the lay people. What would be my target audience? And this is what I heard from everyone that I asked an advice from. They said, try to publish academically first and then write another version for the lay people.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But it's easy to say, right? And especially with all the business to rewrite it in a way that is accessible, and even to get it published with an academic publisher. This itself will take some time.
Writing is so hard.
Yes.
People don't realize, or maybe they do, and that's why they don't do it. But it's so hard.
It is.
Even if it's something you enjoy, it's just, whether it's like finding the time and then having the discipline to get into it and get it done.
Yes, you need lots of motivation to get it done.
Lots of motivation. I found that having some kind of support was helpful, meaning accountability.
Yes.
Like being in that context of Durham, I felt like I got a lot of work done. But then when we moved south to London, I lost that whole group of other academics and I was just disassociated.
Yes.
And it took a few months, maybe even a year, to kind of get myself to a place where I was building relationships with other, ironically, it was other writers.
Who can motivate you and encourage you.
Yeah, but they weren't academics.
Yes.
But I kept going to the same cafe every day. That was my workspace because our home in London was super small. And
yes.
No.
You know, this exactly was my reason, because some people said, why don't you just stay in Egypt and write your dissertation there? I said, if I just stay there, this will never be done.
No.
And when I couldn't get my visa renewed to come again, I kind of lost hope that this PhD will ever be done, because I knew this. I needed a kind of a space to go every day just to read and write. Mm-hmm. And only when I came here, I was able to do this, to work fast, comprehensive exams, languages, the dissertation.
What was the biggest help? So there's two things that go into being able to actually write. One is having the motivation.
Oh, yeah.
But then that comes from inside.
Yes.
Usually. Or external, when it's like the pressure, you need to finish this.
Yes.
But what, in terms of help, like what was the biggest help to you in getting it done?
To finish writing? Mm-hmm. I think motivation from people around you and seeing that, well, for me, I wanted to go back. There's a need in my context that I want to go back and I need to get this done. And at the same time, thinking of all the love and support that you have received already for the last years. And then you would say, you don't want to disappoint these people. These people, they have been praying for you. They have been investing in you. They have been encouraging you. And you went that far. And another thing, which I would say this was the most encouraging point, is when I saw God's hands in the previous steps. So I would look behind and reflect on what the Lord has been doing in kind of impossible situations. Humanly speaking, there was no way out. And then you'd see how the Lord opened the door providentially. And then you, oh Lord, then you are behind this. Because this is not coincidence. You sovereignly brought me here at this point. So I'm sure that you'll continue. And this has been a very encouraging moment or moments for me. Because I remember many days I would go and sleep and I don't know where I'll get the strength in the morning to go and write again, or to go to sit on my desk and read and write. And although I didn't feel it, that I want to go, but I just went. I just went. And thinking of these things that I told you, thinking of the people, thinking that I have something to do, I had to go back, and thinking of what the Lord has done. I think this was my greatest motivation. Practically speaking, this is a great privilege at PRTS that maybe you have seen this. We have these small cubicles with door that you close on this desk.
Is that in the library?
In the library.
I haven't seen this.
You should see this. For me, it's a perfect place.
Yeah.
It's not very big, which is good. It's a kind of a convenient place.
Yeah.
And you are inside. You are kind of in a cube.
Yeah.
And you have your books there. And I would put my earbuds on, and then I'm alone. I'm totally alone. I'm out of the world. And at the same time, if you need a book, it's one step. You open the door and you get the book from the library, and then you are back in. So I had a kind of a cave. This is very practically speaking. No distraction.
Yeah.
No visual, no audio distraction, nothing. Yes.
Did you have a good community of other PhD students at PRTS?
Yes. Not many PhD students. There were some. Only one of them was New Testament, so we can talk about things that are common.
Okay.
But the community of the students in general, even the master students, and this was nice. But I would not say that this was the biggest motivation. The professors are always available. This was a kind of an asset. You know, my main supervisor is there every day. So at any point, I would just go down and knock the door. I troubled him a lot. Yes, and I have another supervisor from the seminary, my secondary. He was always available too. So,
I was afraid of my supervisor.
Yes.
Initially.
Oh.
You know, there's this. Maybe it was just me, but I just felt like, okay, he's so busy. I felt this. That's not necessarily true, but what I found out towards the end of my PhD is that my initial kind of perceptions were wrong. And he's one of the most kind and available people ever. And we became quite close.
This is precious. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel the same with my main supervisor now.
Yeah. It was very important. And for people listening, it's very important to maintain those relationships.
Yes.
Because it's very easy once. So you're going to go back to Alexandria, Egypt soon.
Yes.
And we'll talk about your background and everything in a minute. But we left England after being there for almost a decade and came back to the States. And it was only recently, well, I've reached out every few months to John, but it was only recently that we had more of an extended conversation, and I realized just how important that is. It's so easy with the physical or the geographical distance.
Yes.
And you get so busy with your life that it's too easy for those relationships to fall away. And
I agree. I agree. You build friendship. It's not just a supervisor-student relationship.
No.
You're building friendship. And I remember with Dr. Michael Barrett, the amount of conversations about life, about his health, about my health, about his family, about my family. These are precious moments, precious times, and I think we will keep in touch. Of course, I'm speaking now while being here. I did not leave yet.
Yeah.
But I would love to keep this because I feel now the bond,
Yeah.
It's not just a business relationship or
Right.
a professor-student relationship. It's beyond than that.
It's really special, isn't it? Because in a way, I remember like starting the PhD and first actually I did a master's degree under John. And there's still that hierarchy. Even though the British system, they tell you from day one, like, oh, call me John. It's not doctor this, doctor that, like
Yes,
I had
like
in
here, yes.
seminary
Yes.
back here in the US.
Yes.
But later reflecting on it, it's like, oh yeah, his job was to bring me from this, master's level of whatever, of
Research
understanding,
skills. Yes.
and bring me up to not his level of experience, but his level of being considered as an expert in something.
Yes.
Like he wants you to be a fellow doctor.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it still feels awkward,
It does.
in his presence.
Yes. Yes. He will always be your professor.
He'll always be your doctorvater, as we say,
Dr.
right?
Vater, yes.
Or professor or
Yes.
mentor.
Yes.
So, okay, let's talk about your research. So
Okay.
you and I have talked a little bit before about this, but it was in Paul.
In especially Romans,
Yes.
and especially Romans 6.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And Paul's
Give me
statement.
the abstract.
Okay, I think the abstract would be what did Paul mean by his statement, death to sin, that we died to sin. And my argument is that Paul is making a kind of an interwovenness between the freedom from the guilt of sin and the power of sin in this statement. And to make it even more, in more details, in one sentence, I think Paul has a judicial, a transformative, and eschatological aspects as he's discussing death to sin in this chapter. The three of them are together. It's too narrow just to say death to sin means one of these. I think the whole chapter shows that it includes the three of them. So this is my main argument. And at the same time, I'm showing that the forensic aspect is always foundational. It's they are inseparable, but the forensic aspect is in Paul's mind, even in Romans 6, in relation to the eschatological reality that we are now freed from the dominion and reign of sin.
Explain the forensic.
The forensic means judicial, which is justification by faith, that we stand right before God.
So God is the holy judge.
God is the holy judge, and we
We are
stand
guilty.
right before Him.
This type of language.
Yes.
Judge, guilty, punishment,
Condemnation
judgment.
or justification. This is the language. This is the forensic language. I can also include the language of reconciliation, peace with God. Now, God is not an enemy.
Yeah.
Because when I say forensic, I'm always concerned that people think of God just as a judge. I think it's beyond, even more than that. God is a king. He's not a neutral person that judging according to the law that is outside of himself. Every sin is against him personally. So he's not just a judge in the scene when I say judicial or forensic. He's the king. And
where is that supported in Paul's language in Romans 6?
in Romans 6, I think...
See, now you're getting a panel of one.
I'm glad that I just did my defense yesterday. It's fresh in my mind.
Yeah, if you quizzed me on my work, I'd be like,
Well, it's good that it's still fresh. I would say Romans 6:7 would be a very good place to start with, because Paul is saying in Romans 6:7, the one who died, most of the English translation says the one who died is freed from sin. But the word that Paul uses here, the Greek word that Paul uses, is not freed. It is justified. And he has another word for freedom. We are freed from sin. And he used the other word in the same chapter at the end of chapter 6, 6:18 and 6:22. But in 6:7, he intentionally uses a word, the dikaiao word, or this Greek word, which he only uses in the book of Romans in a judicial sense. So why would you say only in this part that it is not judicial, it's not forensic?
but what's the difference between being free from sin versus justified from sin?
Because freed from sin can be freed from the power of sin.
Okay.
So you are freed from the dominion of sin as if sin is a kind of a king.
Which is where you get some, well, let's call it incorrect ideas about the Christian's ability to defeat sin in this life, meaning you're free from sin, you shouldn't be, like, you won't sin any longer.
Well, this is one extreme of understanding that the
Yeah.
sin, a perfectionistic way of understanding it, which is, I think, totally wrong. It doesn't make sense with the personal experience. And this is not what Paul is saying in this chapter, definitely. Because later on he will say, present your members as weapons for righteousness, not for unrighteousness. So he's assuming that they are still struggling with sin, and this will become clearer in Romans 7. But sin can be still thought of as an old king or someone that people by nature they are under its dominion.
Yeah.
And through the work of Christ, we are freed from this dominion. And this is clear in Romans 6. It cannot be denied.
Yeah.
But I would call it the power of sin. But I would argue it's more than that. Not just that. We are freed from the guilt of sin. Because sin causes guilt. And only justification can free the person from the guilt of sin. And interestingly, Paul is saying in Romans 6:6, that the old man is crucified with Christ, and now sin shall not reign over us anymore. And then he's giving us a reason why this is happening. In Romans 6:7, for the one who died is justified from sin, not freed from sin. The tricky point here is that many Reformed people who believe in forensic justification and Reformed view of justification argue that Romans 6:7 should be freed from sin. Because of the context.
Interesting.
Like John Murray, like Sinclair Ferguson.
Yeah.
And strong names. And how would you argue with these people and say, no, I don't agree with you. However, I've been asked this question yesterday in my dissertation. How did John Murray did not see what you saw? How did Herman Rederbos? How didn't he see what you saw? Because these guys, they said this is the power of sin, freed from the power of sin. I said, I think they had the reasons. One of them is the context of Romans 6. Primarily, it speaks about the freedom from the power of sin. I can't deny this. But I have other, I would say, giants on my side who believe that Romans 6:7 should be judicial, forensic, like George Smeaton, like Robert Haldane, contemporary John Fasco. Recent scholars like John Stott will all believe that this is justified from sin. Even John Piper now would say this is forensic. Interestingly, N.T. Wright, which we don't agree with, I don't agree with in terms of his view of justification, sees this verb as forensic, not as freed, according to his model of justification. So Romans 6:7 has been a key verse for me. And Romans 6:10, that because it says that Christ died to sin. And when you think about Christ's death to sin, you will never say that Christ died to the power of sin because he was not under its bondage. No chance. Many scholars would say Christ died to this age where sin reigned. So it's eschatological. And I grant them this. This is part of it. But again, when we say that Christ died to sin, it has a forensic element that Christ finished the guilt of sin. So that's why I see interwovenness in this text between the forensic and the eschatological, that we are now done with this old age where sin was reigning because of the work of Christ, and the transformative, that we ourselves, this change impacted the believers, the Christians. They themselves, their own relationship with sin is different.
It's just interesting, though, that each of these that you lay out, the forensic, the eschatological, and the transformative, have, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but they could each have both a present implication and a post either death or return of Christ implication, right?
Yes, I would say yes.
So some of these things we're still waiting for them to be realized.
Yes.
we are transformed, of course, through God's giving us of His Spirit and,
Yes.
the daily work of sanctification.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
But the full transformation,
The final glorification, yes. The
the
final
Corinthians transformation,
Yes.
that's
We're
that
still looking
lies
forward
in
to
wait.
it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And even on the eschatological sense, I would say the same, because the already but not yet. Christ inaugurated the new creation and we entered with Him to this new creation. Still, this new creation is not consummated yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we are part of it right now,
Yeah.
and but it's still not consummated. Even justification, I would say we are totally justified now before God. Romans 5:1, Romans 8:1. Since we are justified, we have peace with God. There is no condemnation now on those who are in Jesus Christ, Romans 8:1. Still, we are waiting for the final day where we will be vindicated, where this justification will be proclaimed. So I would say, yes, there are a present element to all of them, but at the same time, there's a future element of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What would Luther think of your thesis? Because he's watching you right now. He watches all of our guests.
Well,
and critiques.
Well, Luther would be focusing a lot about forensic justification.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
But I think there are some misconceptions about Luther, that he did not care much about life of obedience, which is not true. I don't think that this is a right view of Luther. Sometimes I feel Lutherans are more Lutherans than Luther himself. So I think he will definitely emphasize the forensic aspect. And if you think back, the kind of classic Reformed guys, they will see it as more forensic, death to sin in general.
Yeah.
But as you move forward with contemporary or 20th century Reformed people, they will say, well, we believe in forensic justification, but when it comes to Romans 6, Romans 7 and 8, sin is more personified as a power. The reign of sin is in view. So justification is not here. These are the results of justification. Starting from John Murray. John Murray, you'll see the same in Dogmu. I said Sinclair Ferguson has a chapter on this in his book, Devoted to God, a whole chapter on this issue. Interestingly, one of my discoveries was Tom Schreiner. You know Tom Schreiner, I saw you interviewed him before.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Yes.
We did a little chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom Schreiner, you would see, if you read his commentary, his old commentary and new commentary on Romans, he has two commentaries on Romans, a first edition and second edition.
Yep.
You'll see big differences. I would call them big because maybe this is my area.
He did acknowledge that some things had changed for him.
Yes. And one of them is this point, is Romans 6. Because you can
On the
see,
free versus justified.
yeah, this is part of it. And not only that, he would say there is a forensic element in this chapter. You cannot say that this chapter, Paul is done with the forensic in Romans 1-4 and now he's moving to another. No, it is there. And you can read it clearly. I quoted him a lot. And it was interesting to see the transition that he made
Yeah.
from the first to the second one.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's such a great man.
Oh, yeah. And a very humble
Just
man.
his humility. I was just going to say.
Yes. I just met him at ETS.
Yeah. For the
last
first
ETS,
time.
For the first time to meet him in person.
Yeah. Have you met Doug Moo in person?
No, not in person. I met Schreiner. Schreiner endorsed my first book, my Th.M. Thesis.
Yeah.
I published it on Walter Marshall.
Okay.
And Schreiner endorsed it.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're both tall guys.
Schreiner is.
No, Schreiner's tall, but Doug Moo's very tall.
I didn't meet him in person. Yes.
And I'm tall. So I felt
So you
kind of
felt
shadowed by him.
Whoa! But I think Schreiner will be the same.
Maybe the same height.
Has same height as you.
Doug
right?
Moo's like 6'5" or taller.
Whoa!
But very gentle man. Very thoughtful. Yeah.
It's very encouraging to be able to contact with these people and to listen to them and to ask them questions and to listen to them.
Yeah.
This is precious. The one of the most helpful guys in my journey as well was one of my advisors. I didn't mention his name, Guy Waters from RTS. Guy Waters helped me a lot, especially when I was interacting with the New Perspective guys and with apocalyptic pole scholars.
Yeah.
So I had Michael Barrett and I had Stephen Myers from PRTS. He helped me with the systematic theology part.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of systematic theology discussion in my work. And Guy Waters, especially with the Pauline stuff, the new perspective, the apocalyptic pole.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's so encouraging to work with these men and to interact with them, and it's a privilege.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's one of the most beneficial things I got out of doing a PhD in the UK is engaging with and interacting with these scholars in person at conferences in particular.
Yes.
Because email, you can access anybody by email.
Oh, yeah.
And that's useful,
Yes.
very useful.
Yes.
Especially for short, concise things
Yes.
here and there. But yeah, as one example, I remember presenting a paper at St. Andrews at a symposium out there. But symposiums there are attended by like the big dogs.
Wow.
You're sitting in rooms surrounded by the people these are the people writing the books, writing the commentaries, like really doing some pretty groundbreaking things, or at least kind of the most thought-provoking works in modern theological circles. But anyway,
But if you can survive those, you're fine.
I'm not saying I survived, but I had been reading a lot in artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Because I'd finished the PhD at this point, and now we were awaiting. I don't remember what. Anyway, I was between the PhD and launching that business, and I'd written a paper just exploratory on looking at Paul's schema or system, or I called it like his algorithm of justification or something like that. I have to revisit the paper. But I'd been reading a lot into artificial intelligence because I was really interested. And
It's interesting.
I remember I presented this paper, and in the back of the room, well, there were some big names there, but one of them was Tom Wright.
Okay.
And he was sitting there straight back from the podium, left-hand side in the back row. But it was a small classroom, so he was
Close
close
enough.
close enough to smell him.
Yes.
And we got into a bit of a, after I presented, his hand shot up in the air.
Whoa.
And
now you have to answer Tom Wright.
We went at it for a little bit in a good way.
Yes.
In a good, polite British manner.
Yes.
And then afterwards, I think we enjoyed, sandwiches and drinks together.
Yes.
But that was such a privilege.
It is.
So there's not only the positive, like, because I had those people too who would give constructive feedback along the journey of writing the PhD or papers or whatever. And then there were the interlocutors, the ones who totally disagreed. And yet they were still willing to give of their time, challenge your assumptions, and help you refine things.
Which is good. I think this stretches you. I remember again at ETS, last ETS, I went to John Fasco. He was there, and I wanted just to grab his mind about what I'm doing. I was writing and crucial chapters, and I'm putting my argument. So I asked him, "Would you be willing to talk?" And I was surprised. He said, "Yes, I can give you like 45 minutes." 45 minutes.
Wow.
So I said, okay, that's great. And we met. We went to a room all by ourselves, and we were sitting that far. And I kept telling him, this is my argument in Romans 6. And he kept shaking his hands. He said, I like that. And then I asked him, well, I have an excursus, 2 excurses in my dissertation. I told him, I have an excursus. Would you be willing to read it? Shall I send it to you to read it? He said, oh, yeah, please. And he gave me his email. And I sent it to him. I didn't get the feedback yet, but he was very, very open, very willing to talk and to give me his feedback. So, yes, having these men through the journey has been very encouraging and inspiring.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
When you see their humility, their openness, their willingness to interact, their willingness to differ, and graciously. So...
What's the academic climate going to be like for you when you go back to Egypt? Because as you told me earlier, you leave in June. so quite soon.
Yes.
What, I guess, tell me the things that we can go to a more general discussion of Egypt and in particular Alexandria and the work you're doing there, but sticking with the academic conversation we've been having is what are you eager to get back to that academic context, or are there things that you're going to miss here from what we've just been talking about, that accessibility to
Yes.
people?
Of course, look, when it comes to things like ETS or accessibility of meeting like scholars like these in conferences, nothing like that. Nothing. You have to come to the States or to go to Europe to interact with these kind of people, especially in person.
Yeah.
Via email, yes, you can do this.
Sure.
The whole academic arena in Egypt is totally different. There are some seminaries there, but they are not as old as what we have here, and they don't have the same amount of faculty members and writers as you have here.
I'm going to interject real quick because Alexandria was one of the seats of Christianity.
Yes, it was. Yes.
So what you're doing there, well, let's talk about your work.
Okay.
I mean, so you went back to Egypt for a year, but before this, we've talked a little bit about this, but you're involved just in a broad stroke in publishing, teaching, and ministry, yeah?
Yes.
Would those be kind of the three?
I would say yes, mainly yes.
Yeah.
So I am, let's begin with the church. I'm an elder in a Presbyterian church, and my main role is teaching in the church. So I'm responsible for the program for preaching, even though I'm not the main preacher of the church, but I am the one who's responsible for that. And the Sunday school classes or the membership classes, the Bible studies. This is my main role in the church, teaching. Another role, this is my full-time job, is teaching in a seminary. I have been teaching since 2009, started with teaching assistant and then lecturer and so forth. Since 2009 till this point, I've been teaching there. It's called Alexandria School of Theology. It's a Reformed Anglican school, and we have 3 branches in Egypt, and I'm teaching in the 3 of them. So this is my kind of full-time job, and this is another thing that I'm doing. We started a ministry under our church, a teaching ministry from the church called Sura Ministries, and this is a teaching ministry. It's something like Ligonier here or Desiring God, something like that. It's about publishing books, articles, videos, organizing seminars, conferences, and the goal is to promote Reformed material in the Arabic-speaking world, for all the Arabic-speaking world, starting from Egypt, and to help current pastors and teachers to go to the roots, especially the evangelical pastors and Presbyterian pastors, to go back to the roots, because I think this has been lost. So these will be the main 3 things that I'll be doing. As you said, ministry and teaching and publishing. Yes.
So explain that. So that last part. So you mentioned evangelical and what other?
Presbyterians, you mean?
So yeah, the publishing effort.
Okay. Well, let me give you a quick summary of what it looks like in Egypt.
Yeah, because give us a lay of the land.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So Egypt is more than 110, maybe 115 million citizens. 90% are Muslims. And then you have 10% which are Christians.
This is the country of Egypt.
The country of Egypt.
Yeah.
The country of Egypt. So the majority are Muslims, 90% are Muslims. And then you have 10% Christians. And I would say from these Christians, 90% are Coptic Christians.
Okay.
Very similar to Roman Catholicism.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah.
Except they don't have a pope. They have a patriarch not with the same authorities like the Pope in the Catholic Church, and they don't have a purgatory.
You don't have a...
they don't have a purgatory, the purgatory.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But generally speaking, very similar.
Okay.
Traditional masses, I would say, were based in many ways, religion. And so these are the majority of the Christians. And most of them, they don't even go to the church. Most of them, they don't know the right from the left, if I may say. And then you have 10% of the Christians are broad evangelicals. And among them, you have Presbyterians, you have Baptists, you have dispensational, you have Assemblies of God, Anglicans, of course. But the majority, the big part of these evangelicals are the Presbyterians, which is the biggest, most widespread, well-organized church. But I would call them, they're not true Presbyterians, so they don't hold to the Westminster standards. Most of them are Arminian. The majority are Arminian. Some liberals, many feminists. This is the situation of the church. So Reformed people are very, very, very small part of the evangelicals back in Egypt. However, if I look back 20 years ago, there was kind of none, maybe one or two that I would know of. But since 2005, the Lord is doing something.
Why 2005? What's been causing kind of this even slow growth?
I think because a seminary started. There's a seminary started there, which is the Anglican seminary, the Alexandria School of Theology, where I'm teaching. This seminary started, and the first principal was a PCA minister. And he came with Reformed doctrines to the seminary, and the Anglicans, they said, would you come and help us to start the seminary?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he started it 2005, and this is where I joined the seminary. This was my first year. I was Reformed then, but not in a systematized way. My church was not, my church was just broad evangelical. You can hear something on the pulpit the following week, the opposite, and no one would even notice or understand that this is opposite. No one even understood what does it mean to be Reformed. No clue, nothing. But then this school started, and it started to grow. And when I went there, this was my first year, another one from the church, we both went to the seminary, and then it was too good, very rich. The gospel is clear, and now you get to know more, the scripture more, to know the Reformed doctrines more. And so we invited more people to join. So every year, our local church would have many students coming, 2 or 3 students, 4 students every year joining the seminary. On the span of maybe 5-6 years, maybe 30 graduates from our church, my local church, from the seminary, men and women. They turned the church upside down. So eventually the church became Reformed. My local church. And this is the only church that I would say it is Reformed all over Egypt. I don't know any other church like that.
Really?
So, and when I say Reformed, which means membership classes, I write them Westminster lessons, expository preaching every Lord's Day, all kinds of Reformed doctrines that you can think of, the 5 solas, the tulip, the sovereignty of God, doctrines of grace. It's there. And in 2015, we said, we are alone. This is not good. We need others to know this. And we need, like the Presbyterians, to know the roots. Because they call themselves Presbyterians, but if you talk to them, this is not Presbyterian. You know, when I tell people here, Presbyterians in Egypt are Arminian, and they look at me and say, what?
Yeah, like how is that possible?
How is that possible? But this is the case. In fact, when you teach covenant theology, or when you teach doctrines of grace in Presbyterian churches, you'd be resisted. Some elders would come to you and say, we have never heard this.
Wow.
We have never heard this. We were just making a seminar a month ago, and one of our fellow teachers in this ministry, he gave a seminar on the holiness of God for 70 people from a church, Presbyterian church, and then came one of the elders to him, and he said literally, this God that you are talking about, I have never heard of.
Wow.
An elder. This is an elder. So in 2015, going back to this ministry, 2015, we said, we don't want to be alone. We want to bring it to more people. So let's start this teaching ministry. 4 men, including myself, different churches, not only from my local church, 2 from the church, but 2 from other churches. And we said, let's start this ministry. It will be under the umbrella of the church. It comes from the church. And our goal is to bring Reformed doctrines in the Arabic-speaking world. We want to produce books, articles, video materials, audio materials. And then we started to make kind of partnerships with like-minded ministries. We started with the Gospel Coalition. We translated the New City Catechism, subtitled it. We invited Don Carson in 2015. We did our first seminar with Don Carson on what is the gospel. And then we said we need to do more seminars, more conferences. And then from 2019, we start to have an annual conference and to invite leaders to come and taste some of the Reformed doctrines. Joel Beakey came in 2020. We had Mark Dever. We had Ligon Duncan. This year, last February, we had Mike Reeves. And more people now are endorsing it. Not only our local church, leaders and pastors and elders. This is good. We need more of that. And at the same time, we want to give them material. So we are publishing books, translating books, writing books. I have lots of stories about the books that we are doing. One of the things that we are doing now with RHB is the Family Worship Guide. We did the New Testament, the Old Testament. The first part of it is almost out, hopefully. And we did another book for Dr. Beakey, the Contagious Christian Living. And we did books with Crossway, with Desiring God, with 9 Marks, with PNR. So the Lord is blessing this movement. It's still, we are increasing by tens, maybe hundreds, but something's happening. Now more local churches and pastors are saying, would you come over and help? We need a seminar, we need a training. And more doors are open. So I think I will give a lot of time for that. In addition to my academic role in the seminary, teaching classes in the seminary.
When you go back?
When I go back, yes.
So publishing and teaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Publishing and teaching.
Be the main focus.
Yes. And the church work, of course.
Yeah.
My local church.
Yeah.
Of course, yes.
You keep saying we, there's no way you could do all this by yourself.
No chance, no, of course. We have a team now.
So,
Yes.
yeah, like a full-time team.
We have four full-time members and maybe 3 part-time. In addition to our board members who are also involved. I'm chairing this ministry, and the chair of the board member of the board, and they call me the general director of the ministry. But we have a team. I can't do all of this because think of it: the social media, the publishing, the typesetting, the translation, the revision, the arrangement of the events, the audio stuff. I can't do this. Mainly, my main role would be planning, strategic planning, teaching in the events, writing. Sometimes I review translations with some theological stuff. I want to make sure that this is well done.
Yeah.
But the work is massive. Some details I'm not even aware of. Other people are doing it.
What's the goal? Like, what's the long-term vision for what you guys are doing?
For this ministry, you mean?
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I think I want to see other Reformed churches
being planted.
No, being reformed.
Becoming reformed.
Becoming reformed. So we have many churches.
Yeah.
And you know what? In Egypt, the thing is, if the church went wrong, you can't start a new denomination. You don't have this luxury. Here, well, tomorrow.
That's just what we do.
Yeah. Tomorrow, let's start a new one. Let's start a new denomination. Well, we don't have this luxury. I think it will be very complicated with the current situation in the country.
There's just legal or political reasons?
Yes, part of it is legal and political reasons, and sometimes the leaders of the current churches will not be happy with that, so they will resist it, and they will even I would not say use the government, but they will not be happy for this to happen. So it's not possible. So far our only option is to reform the churches. We have to stay in and work hard and if I may say the word, fight.
So you teach at a seminary that's Anglican.
Yes.
meaning the true Reformed, and
It is Reformed. It's Reformed.
No,
It's 39 articles, people.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I was half joking. Hey, we were at an Anglican church our whole time in England.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great church.
Yes.
So, but I would have to think you're training up people to go out.
In the Anglican church, you mean?
So do they?
In the Anglican seminary, you mean?
So the Anglican seminary, yeah. So the students graduate and they go into Anglican churches, or
Not necessarily.
all over.
All over. Again, this is a special situation in Egypt and the Middle East. We have Anglican students, of course, but the majority are not Anglicans of the students. They come from all different backgrounds.
And they're all Egyptian, or do you have people from
Some
other?
Sudan. Some people come from Sudan as well.
Okay.
Egyptians and Sudanese.
Yeah.
So, but you got people from the Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
You got people from the Brethren, the Dispensational. You got people from Catholic Church, from Coptic Church, and they just come to study. And some would come who are not churched at all. They are unchurched.
Wow. Yeah.
And then some of them would turn to be Anglicans, especially those who are unchurched. They would say, well, we want to be part of this.
Yeah.
But many of the others, they just return to their churches with their mind totally changed. And they would stay and make impact in their churches. This is one thing. They don't need even to be ordained to preach. This is another thing in Egypt. You don't need to be the ordained person to preach every Sunday. So the pastor can invite other leaders in the church, gifted, educated men, and many of them would do men and women, and invite them to preach.
And that's across the board for the various denominations.
Yes, especially the evangelicals, not the Coptic, not the Catholics.
Yeah.
Only the priests would do this.
Right.
But the people who come from there, and they have their youth ministry within their churches, so they have their impact as well. But when it comes to evangelicals, especially Presbyterians, if the person is gifted, if he's educated, the church most probably will allow him to preach. So we are training those who go to the pulpit at the end of the day.
Wow. What a strategy.
What a strategy. Yes. But I would love to see them being ordained as well.
So this is interesting because you have, if it really is a strategy, which it's a good one, is the publication of materials that are from a Reformed perspective.
Yes.
And then I won't call it the infiltration, but these men, and as you said, sometimes women, who are going to these churches and bringing this mindset.
Yes, because they're doing youth
them.
ministry and preach on Sunday. And you know what? We are just saying, guys, let's see. We don't say in the first maybe 2 or 3 years, we are Reformed. We'll say, let's study the Bible. Let's study theology. And we discuss it with them, and they interact with us. And then later on, maybe in the 3rd and 4th year, we start to teach them about Reformed more. This is Reformation theology. This is what Calvin is saying. This is what Luther is saying. This is what the Westminster Standards are saying. These are the 39 articles. And then people are astonished. Are these our roots? Yes. When we teach you about the doctrines of grace, when we show it to you in the Bible, this is not a new discovery. In fact, your denomination, this is how it started. This was its confessional standard.
And they
have no clue.
Not heard this.
They have never heard it. Yes.
Amazing.
So we are going from the Bible to the confessions.
Do you have a lot of them react in a way that it would seem like is quite positive, because now they have something to anchor into?
Oh, yeah.
This grounds my faith. I know that in my past, I spent a lot of time in just general evangelical churches that if the elders or the head pastor had some of this grounding, it was never talked about. And so if you're sitting there in the pews, it's just obscure. It's just, well, there's the Bible, and you don't really have any kind of system. It's not packaged well. It's just it's a very opaque kind of experience. And then it was, I know from my personal experience, we had just gotten married, and we walked into this independent Baptist church where I think it was Reformed Baptist, but the pastor started handing me, Calvin's Institutes to read, and Luther's commentary on Galatians, and talking me through a more systematized, I would say structured understanding of like, what is it that we believe? And being in my late 20s at the time, I think, I'd been a Christian for a long time, but I didn't have the grounding.
Yes.
I didn't have anything to anchor my faith into.
Yes. You were not connected.
I would call it like a cliche Christianity.
Yes.
I knew the things you're supposed to say, and I prayed the way that, the people on your left and right pray.
Yes.
But there was nothing really, it was quite superficial. There was nothing really deep and grounded that connected me to a truly historic Christianity.
And this is very crucial to understand that we are not the first ones to believe in these things or to say these things. Sometimes I feel people, when they go to certain discussions, guys, you are reinventing the wheel. This has been discussed and debated and wrote about long time ago. So I'll give you an example. One of the classes that I teach is Creeds and Confessions. And I'm teaching some of the Reformed confessions, the three forms of unity, for instance. And then we read the Synod of Dort. And then I show them how the Remonstrants and the Dutch Reformed people, they interacted during the Synod of Dort. And then when they read the arguments, guys, this is the same discussion that Arminian and Calvinists are saying today. The same discussions, the same questions, the same answer. This has been kind of dealt with 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Can you think of that?
Yeah.
When I teach Luther and Erasmus, Bondage of the Will. Whoa. So I did this seminar with our ministry, with the Surah ministry, 2 times at least, where we teach during the Reformation kind of October 31st, the Reformation Day.
Yeah.
We say, well, let's teach about the bondage of the will. And then this is what I just do. I say, Erasmus said this, and Luther answered this. And then I imagine how the dialogue would go between them. It's the same kind of dialogue that people, they have at these days. It has been there. And the church kind of solved it. When you tell the people, all the Reformed people, they believed in the sovereignty of God or election, let's say. They would say, every one of them. I said, yes, there was everyone. This is what it means to be Reformed.
Yeah.
In fact, not to believe in the doctrines of grace, this means that you are Catholic. For them, this kind of, you are shaking the ground. And now they are rethinking of it. But from my experience, if you start this way, you will lose them in the first year.
Why do you think that is?
Because they have this kind of protective mindset.
Yeah.
I don't want this. This is against what I believe. And you just bring them to the debates. For the first 2 years, I think the best thing to do is to let them struggle with the scripture. So let's go to the text. And you help them to do exegesis. So exegesis classes are very important. Interpretation, Old Testament background, New Testament background, give them the general picture, and then they start to teach them, of course, systematic theology, but also some biblical theology. And then you read the text with them and you ask them, what do you think? What does it say? Again, one of the classes that I teach is the Pentateuch, the theology of the Pentateuch. And when we come to the book of Exodus, for instance, and the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, or when we come to why did God choose Jacob and not Esau, and then we read the text together, and then you start the discussion. What do you think?
Yeah,
and you hear it from them, and you see them debating, and then they bring their own views, not what the scripture says, but then they say, I think this is what it means. Then let's go and read the text, and then we read the text. It says the opposite of what you say. What do you do with this? I remember one time, some students said, because I've been promoting these kind of doctrines, and the students were not comfortable. And so they said, you know what? They were talking to each other in front of me. One of them said, my problem is not with Sherif. My problem is with the scripture. Because this is what the scripture says. And this is not what we are used to. This is not what we have been preached or what we have been taught for years and years. But this is challenging. Some of them, when they face the scripture in this way, by God's grace, they just change.
Yeah.
And others would be furious, angry. And then later on, we go to the confessions and church history and historical theology, and when you show it to them, those who already start to absorb it, well, they are more rooted now. And the others, they're kind of in a shock. And they will start to hold fast to John Wesley or to Charles Finney or these kind of names. Well, there was other names in church history. And they say, okay, but these were not the roots. The other challenge is when people start to become Reformed, I think you'd understand this. You know, when people who are not Reformed become Reformed, they don't preach the gospel, they preach Calvinism.
And in a way that can be, off-putting. And it's interesting, I was just going to ask you this actually are you counseling these young people? I'm presumably many of them are younger, that, hey, when you go back to your church, take it easy.
Yes. And
like we gave you 3 years to come around.
Yes.
Give them 10.
10, yes.
You know, take your time.
It's like giving an RPG, you know, to a small child, and now he's messing around with it, you know. I have seen this. I have seen many complaints from churches.
I'm sure. Like,
they come back
gentle.
To yes.
Be gentle. Like, you don't need to get people across the finish line today.
Yes.
You know, sometimes we do that in certain circles of evangelism. It's like, I need to secure this person's salvation now.
Yes.
There's maybe an argument for that, of having an intensity in your evangelistic efforts.
Yes.
But there's also a point where it's like building a relationship is important too.
Very important.
And people seeing the testimony of your life. You know what I'm saying? So, I was just imagining that when the light bulb goes on for these people, I mean, I did it. I totally did it.
Yes.
You know, when I went from kind of wishy-washy Christianity.
The same
got
here.
convicted of Reformed doctrine and principles, and you know, you're like,
you want to tell everyone, and this how don't you see? Yes.
Exactly. Yes. And if you stop to think, like, how long does it take me to get to this point?
And even it's against what we believe, by the way, if you think about it, because what we believe is that if the Lord doesn't open the eye, the person will not see. So why are you kind of expecting them? Why are you pushing them as if it's about convincing them? It's not about convincing them. It's about God's Spirit to work with them. Yes, you preach it, you argue, you try to convince, but it's not your logical, reasonable arguments that will make them change their minds. Mm-hmm. It's the work of the Spirit. Because some of them it can come here, they can see it, but they're not happy. They're not comfortable.
Yeah.
And they will resist it with all their might. So I think what we believe should impact how we communicate it, and what to expect from the people, how to be patient and have this kind of long suffering and humility. But I have heard this again and again, how many people said, we hate these kind of doctrines because of those who promote it, because of their attitude, because of their violence, because of their humor, because of their, pride.
Yeah.
I have heard this again and again and again.
Yeah.
And you see it when you start to process it with the people slowly, when they fight back against you and you just absorbed it and then talk humbly with them. I saw this again and again. This had great impact, at least on the reaction of what they hear. They may disagree with you, but they will never be violent. Yeah. They would say, we'll think about it.
Yeah.
We'll think about it.
Yeah.
So Yes.
We got told, I'm sure many of those listening will have heard this before, and I don't actually agree with this analogy because I love dogs. But they told us, they said, men, when you get out to your churches, be shepherds and not German shepherds. You know, the German shepherd can be a very aggressive,
Yes, with the
like
sheep.
police dog or whatever. I actually like German shepherds, so I don't like that analogy. And German shepherds can be very sweet,
Yes,
and
yes.
protective of their sheep. But you get the point. It's like be gentle and not harsh.
Yes.
So
Without compromising.
without compromise, well, you don't have to. If being soft and gentle and nurturing does not need to involve compromise.
Yes, yes, yes.
At all.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's the publishing, teaching. Well, no, that's the teaching. So that's the teaching. So you're teaching up these young people.
Yes, especially in the seminary.
I'm assuming some of them are more mature students.
Some of them will be above 30s and even above 40s, and some of them will be
Okay.
20s.
Okay.
Many of them will be 20s, yes.
Okay, from various different denominations.
Various different denominations. Yeah.
And are we just talking about Alexandria or
No, I told you this. We had like 3 campuses in Egypt. We have one in Alexandria, and one in Cairo, which is the capital, and one in Minya, a city called Minya, which is in Upper Egypt, maybe 3 hours out of south of Cairo. And so I would be teaching in Cairo and Alexandria 1 week here and 1 week there.
Okay.
And I would go to this 3rd campus maybe once or twice a semester to teach intensive classes.
Yeah.
Our classes would be on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because our students are not full-time students. They are working. They are working. They are studying. They are doing other things, and they dedicate Thursday, Friday, Saturday, twice a month to come and take 14 lectures.
Wow.
Yes, it's a lot of work. And so for us, I would teach these 3 days, and then church on Sunday, of course, and then 3 days writing, preparation, grading, whatever, and then you go again to the second branch and teach again, and so forth.
When do you find the time to do the publishing side of things?
Well, it's when Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
I would be involved in that. And sometimes during the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if I don't have lectures, if I have a kind of an empty schedule, well, I can do other things. So I would distribute my time between this and that. And sometimes I would combine them. So you don't do this separate from that. It's the same thing at the end of the day. So you take from this, put it here, and you take from this, put it there, or to use it in your lectures, to use it in your sermons, your writing. So there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
Yes, especially in terms of the material and the content.
So you've told me about some English language works that have been translated. Are you seeing, well, I would count you in this, but are you seeing any kind of voices from Egypt itself start to rise up in terms of
Writing, you mean?
theologians
Well,
from a Reformed perspective?
yes, I think it does.
I hope you're not the only one. I say that
yes,
in a very kind way.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're out there, you're writing, and I hope you publish your dissertation both academically and popularly.
Yes.
But I am quite curious to know if from the seminary work or otherwise, that if there maybe are some other voices coming up.
The good thing is I'll tell you a few things here. First, when we do our conferences, I mentioned we invite speakers to come like B.Th and Ligon Duncan and others. But from the very first conference, we never have a conference with only English-speaking people. From the very first conference, it will be a main speaker, but Egyptian speakers, Egyptian theologians who are teaching.
Yeah.
And we never received negative feedback about the Egyptian speakers. They never said, well, no, we just want the expats. In fact, the main reason that we invite these people is not because they will say something that we don't know how to say it or we don't know, But we are just showing them, we are not inventing it. It's the church worldwide. You have people with the same like theology, and these men, they are godly men. They have been working in the ministries for years. They have been leading churches. They have their impact for decades, and this is their doctrine. And see, their ministries is very, very successful. The church, they are godly men. So this is what we want them to see. But we have local indigenous teachers. This is in terms of teaching. In the seminary, we have like 4 or 5 full-time faculty. All of them are Egyptians. In all fields. And all of them, they did their degrees in different places all over the world, but they're all Egyptians and now they are teaching. So this is teaching in the seminary. In terms of writing, I would say the majority of the publishing has been, especially books, has been translated works. However, now we have I published 3 books with our ministry in the last 3 years, published 3 books. And there's another guy who's teaching in the seminary. He's now writing another book in Arabic. In terms of articles, it's kind of 30%, 70%, 30 indigenous and 70% will be translated. Sometimes it's 30, 70, 40, 60. It differs. But we are, yes, some people are producing materials. When we do seminars throughout the year, 80% of the seminars, Egyptians, people from the team who are teaching, either myself or others.
Yeah.
So I want to see this growing, that we are developing indigenous writers. The last book that I wrote was published last October, on the Reformation, on the 5 solas. One of the very, very few books in Arabic on the 5 solas. And this book, because we have been interacting with people outside of Egypt as well as a ministry, this book was published by another publisher, a Reformed publisher in another country, in 4 other countries. So one book is now published in 5 countries, thousands of copies, on the 5 solas of the Reformation. And this is not translated. This is locally written from a Middle Eastern perspective on the 5 solas.
What's the reading culture like in Egypt?
It's growing.
And in the Middle East?
It's growing.
It is.
It went
from what? Like what's the starting point? Do people tend to read much? Has, the advent of technology and social media reduced reading?
I don't think so. It's the opposite. It's interesting. In the 90s and early 2000s, I think things were down the hill. It was bad.
You're talking about Egypt.
In Egypt, yes, especially in Egypt. But in the last 10, 15 years, there's a kind of a revival going on.
And what are people reading?
Generally speaking, or Christians. Generally speaking, novels, politics.
So all kinds of
stuff. Literature. And it's growing. It's growing in Egypt. I think more publishing houses are being kind of coming to the business. But even with Christian publishers, especially with Reformed Christian publishers, when this Reformed movement started, some of the students from AST, people who listened to them, and now I know at least of 3 or 4 other publishers beside us who are publishing good Reformed material.
In Egypt.
In Arabic.
In Arabic in Egypt.
In Egypt, maybe 2 or 3, and outside of Egypt, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Which is, for me, this is massive.
Yeah.
And no matter what the motive is, but anyway, these material now are being published. Because 15 years ago, if you ask me, I need a book in Arabic on this doctrine. Let's say on, on providence. Nothing. 0. I need a book on Christology. Nothing. I need systematic theology. Nothing. Or only maybe one Grudem was available. But now people are getting more interest. More books are being published. People now get to know Joel Beakey, R.C. Sproul, John Piper. They haven't, 15, 20 years ago, who are these guys? No one knows anything about them. They would know Benny Hinn. They would know Joyce Myers. They would know Joel Osteen. These are the people that they would know.
Yeah.
But now they start to get to know different people. So this is growing. And now we started in the last 2 years, some audiobooks. I would say this culture is not there yet. Almost 1%, maybe less, of
The
those who read.
Egyptian culture is not really big on audiobooks.
On audiobooks, no, not yet. And one of the reasons is the language, because we have two different kind of Arabic language in Egypt. What we speak is different from what we write and what we read.
Really?
Yes.
That's confusing.
Well, it's like, I'll give you an example. Think of
So,
it.
sorry to interrupt. So meaning, if you were to take a book that was written in Arabic and then you were going to have the author read it,
It will look very weird.
Egyptian people would be like, this is weird.
This is weird.
awkward.
Yes, this is kind of reading Shakespeare now.
Okay.
Yes, just reading very old English. This is the official language of reading. We don't speak like this in the street.
Wow.
You sound funny.
Wow.
So now sometimes when we translate books or when we write books, we do two versions. One of the colloquial language and one of we call it the modern standard Arabic.
Okay.
The written and the well-read Arabic. The problem is educated people who love books, they love the modern standard Arabic. They don't like the colloquial. But young people, the social media generation, they love what we speak. So we try to do this. We produce audiobooks in MSA, like reading the real Arabic, or reading like the street language, what we use every day. And definitely people like this version, the street language, in terms of the audiobooks. It's kind of listening to a podcast, listening to someone just speaking we call it the Egyptian Arabic, the street language. People love that.
Yeah.
But still, this is very small in Egypt. Kindle is not big. E-books is not big. People still, it's a kind of a physical book.
They want the printed
yet.
thing.
Yes, they want to print the thing. However, e-books is growing. I would say e-books is way beyond audiobooks, but still not as printed books.
Do you have the same? Do you have the same issue in preaching? Because for the Bible, I mean, so you've got how many versions of the Bible?
We have different versions, but there's one which is so dominant. You'll find it in every single church.
Okay.
It's the King James Version.
Sure.
We call it Van Dyke. And it's everywhere. This is how people memorize verses and so. And this is what's being read if the church is reading the Bible on Sunday.
But I would assume there could be quite a strong demand for a more colloquial version.
Yes, or
from
easier.
a younger generation.
Or even easier, because this...
Like
this
the NIV of...
Some kind of
Egyptian Bibles.
But this has been strongly resisted. And it has to do with the culture. Because our culture, the way people understand revelation and inspiration is influenced by the culture, which is more about dictated revelation. So if you mess up with the text, this corruption of the text.
I see.
People don't understand the concept of inspiration and revelation easily.
Yeah.
But the struggle is the current translation, which is, by the way, very good in terms of going to the original Greek and Hebrew. Very good. Mm-hmm. It has been made more than 160 years old.
Yeah.
So and the language evolves. Even the modern standard Arabic, the official Arabic, even this evolved. So some generation, younger generation, when they read this, sometimes we don't understand what is that.
Yeah.
What is that? So you have to explain it to them.
Yeah.
And some people say we need easier translation. This is a big debate still.
Well, it's a debate here too.
It is.
I mean, one of my very good friends, Mark Ward, wrote the book Authorized, where he goes through and shows that there are words, and he grew up on the King James and still loves it, but he says, but we need to acknowledge that there are words that the meaning has changed in the last, 1611, hundreds of years.
Yes.
It's like, that's a long time ago. So, and it's just the way that language works. So, and his concern is, and Mark, I know you're going to listen to this, we're going to get him on the podcast at some point, but to talk about this very thing. But the problem is that if you're reading the word today, you could be misled as to the meaning, which thereby can kind of knock you off course theologically. Now, it may not be a big deal in many instances, but there's some places where that could have, some serious implications.
I agree.
I can imagine in the Egyptian as well.
It is the same. But if you ask my personal opinion, I would say it's an issue, but it's not the battle that I will fight now.
Yeah.
There are other way more urgent fights and battles.
Yeah.
So because when you have many things that you need to fix, you choose your battles.
Yeah. So what needs fixing most in the Egyptian context?
That the Bible needs to be preached every Sunday.
Yeah.
The doctrines of grace. What is the gospel? What does it mean to be God-centered? So if you ask me, this is the main thing: God-centered versus man-centered. What is the church for? These things. I need to make sure that people understand these things, the importance of the local church.
Mm-hmm.
These kind of issues. And then, if you fix this, you go further. But people are struggling to speak or to talk about who God is. Is God sovereign or not? Is God is everything in control, under control or not? Is salvation by faith alone, by grace alone, through Christ alone? Or there's other ways of salvation? The exclusivity of Christ. These are the issues that we are discussing, or some of the issues that we are discussing. The free will of man. Is total depravity something that is true or not? Our children are born sinners or not? Is God can be wrathful or not? Does God can God get angry or not? Is there hell or not? So all these kind of questions. Of course, marriages. What does it mean to be married? What is it, biblical manhood and womanhood? Of course, this is an issue here. We didn't reach the level that these discussion, especially last discussion, the manhood and womanhood reached here at this point. But it's still an issue. I always tell people, this is an issue all over the world. The distortion of manhood and womanhood, it has different faces, but it's all over the place. So you need to teach about this because marriages are destroyed. Families are destroyed. Lots of divorces are taking place. So these are the things that you need to deal with. And now when people become reformed, now you need to tell them, be careful of antinomianism. Because some of them, they say, by grace alone, and they live licentious life. So you need to guard against that. Mm-hmm. So it is very, very, I would say, young movement yet. Very young movement. So we choose our battles.
What are some of the, well, let me ask this question first. What will, when you're 80 years old, and slowing down a bit maybe, because you seem like a very ambitious and thoughtful guy who's you have a mission and you're pursuing it every day. And I love that about you. What will be kind of the measure of success for you? So, you've come near towards the end of your life, whenever that is, or unless the Lord takes you early, may He not. But to you, what will it look like, success in the Egyptian context of all the work that you and these others around you are doing?
If I see more churches like ours, with all its struggles, our church is far from being perfect, far from that. But we have godly leaders. They love the Lord. They love the gospel. They submit to the word of God. They preach the word of God every week, expositional preaching. And they promote doctrines of grace. They love mission. And I would love to see more churches like that. Many, many, many more churches like that. And so I would do this through training men, training current pastors, helping them, providing resources, so that when I die, I would say, There is lots of resources available for the Christian church in Arabic. People can read them, can return to them. Because when I grew up, there was nothing available in Arabic. Nothing. And if I didn't know English, I would be in the dark. So I want people to see things that they are not aware of, and to see examples of healthy churches. I always say this. This is not my word. It's John Piper's, I think, statement, which I really appreciate. Mission exists where worship does not exist.
Yeah.
So what is our goal? Is to find God being worshipped in local churches by local people. And then you're done here, you go to other places to plant other churches and teach healthy churches, and then God is worshipped in these churches. So this is what I want to see in Egypt and beyond, in the Middle East, to see healthy churches where leaders and pastors are teaching the Word of God with integrity every week, every single week. What is being taught in the pulpit every week is healthy to feed God's people and to bring sinners to the Lord. So I would say this would be the success if I see more churches like our churches all over Egypt, because my local church is the only church that I know that is doing this model right now. Maybe there are some attempts here and there.
Yeah.
But church with the leaders, expositor preaching every week. And what happened in our church was very, very providential. I would call it even miraculous, how the Lord led us. And we're still struggling with issues. Some people are not stomaching it. And we're still persuading them, convincing them humbly, without compromise, pastorally. But it's not easy. Lots of challenges and resistance, even in our church. But I would say I would love to see more like that. So this would be the success.
Culturally, do you see that what the Reformed Church in Egypt faces is kind of different, vastly different? Where would it land in terms of what you've experienced here in the United States?
I think there are many differences. Sometimes I feel here people are in luxury in many ways. First of all, you have many Reformed churches or confessional churches, plenty.
Yeah.
So if you live in a place like Grand Rapids,
well, anywhere you live in the U.S., you could probably find
a Reformed church,
driving distance,
right? And you go to and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
In Egypt, if someone goes to Cairo and asks me, I need a Reformed church to go to every Sunday, I can hardly point to one or two in a city with 30 million people.
Wow.
This is a huge difference, right? Yes, in Alexandria, it will be only our church that I would trust, which is a kind of 8 million people. And this does not make me happy.
And so,
yes,
let's say you did point them to one of those two churches. I'm going to assume, well, I won't assume anything. How big of a church are we talking?
50, 100, 150.
150 people?
Yes.
Out of 30 million?
Small churches. And the mega churches, or the biggest church in the Middle East, the most influential church in the Middle East, is promoting Charles Finney. Charles Finney, I would say, Pelagian theology, very man-centered theology, revivalism in a Charles Finney model. This is the biggest, most influential evangelical church in the Middle East. And people are not aware that they are in a problem. So, and everyone would like to copy them because it's successful,
Sure.
Attracting people, famous. They are on the Christian satellite every week. Oh, if you want your church to grow, this is the model. See what they're teaching, see what resources are they using, see what they're preaching, and imitate them. Look, there's a lot of work to be done. If someone maybe is listening and is interested to mission in the Middle East.
So okay, so that was my next question is you talked about the seminary. Well, I'm trying to think of ways that people could help, right?
Yeah.
So, and not just from the United States, but let's take PRTS as an example. I know that there are students there from all over the world.
Yes.
And the Lord sends his emissaries where he will. And if someone were interested or thinking, I might like to serve in Egypt, I might like to help, what can I do? What kind of a climate is it there in terms of, let's say you're about to finish your PhD and you're thinking you want to teach, and you're considering non-English speaking contexts, or maybe you're feeling called to the mission field or pastoring a church not within your own culture. I mean, are these viable options for people to go to Egypt?
Yes, but I think they have to think of the price very well, because it's different culture.
The sacrifice, you mean?
I don't like to use the word sacrifice.
Okay.
Because
why?
No matter what we do for the Lord, it's not a sacrifice. It's gratitude, I would say, at the end of the day. It's an honor to serve the Lord. It's a price that you are following him.
It's an offering.
I may say sacrifice is a big word.
Yeah.
Well, that's my opinion on it. But I would say, yes, there's a price, which is, well, you're going to a very busy place. Very busy.
Busy?
Busy, crowded, busy, loud, noisy.
So this is
the culture.
Typical Egyptian culture. Big,
yes.
Loud
and noisy and busy.
But this is mostly the cities, no?
Oh yeah, mostly the cities. But there's a lot of need there. But even other cities is still comparing to what it looks like here. Oh, it's noisy. People are social. People are loud. They express themselves with a loud voice. This is who they are.
Yeah.
In a good way and a bad way. People are so social, very close to each other. Making friendships is easy, very, very easy. People are hospitable and kind, generally speaking. They are not violent. They are not angry, if I may say. No. But at the same time, you think that you are going to a country where the majority are not Christians. This is different. This is a huge difference. The culture is not Christian. This is culture. It's different. And if you ask me about a person with a PhD who'd like to serve in an Arabic-speaking world, this means a lot. That you need to learn a new language. You have to learn a new language. Well,
you got to read and speak, right?
You should, because if you just stay with your own language, you will always look different.
No, but I mean, you have to learn the written Egyptian.
Well,
and
more importantly, the spoken.
Yeah.
More importantly, the spoken.
Okay.
And they are not far from each other. There are lots of overlap. Still lots of connection, but at least the spoken one. You are dealing with the people in the street every day. You'll even meeting people, talking to them, listening to them. You need to understand what's going on. So you need to know the language. You need to know the culture, and this takes time. Because sometimes when people think of the ministry, they say, well, I'll just go and in a year I'll be teaching in a seminary, or I'll be preaching in a church, or doing a very impactful ministry in the Middle East. No, it's not like that. If I would use your words, there will be a lot of price or sacrifice. You'll spend few years just understanding the culture, understanding the people, trusting them and they trust you, building relationships. So I would say mission work is that you are investing all of your life. You are pouring your life into it. And if I think of a model, every time I think of this, I think of Christ himself and the incarnation. Speaking of sacrifice. So when someone think, well, I'm living in the States or in Europe, and then I'm going to the Middle East or Asia or wherever, it's a huge difference. And then when you think of the incarnation, of what it means to be face to face with God in all glory, and then coming to our world with all its ugliness and sin and evil and wickedness, and resistance and rebellion. And yet he came not just to do a mission and to leave, not just to teach some sermons and die on the cross and leave. He lived 33 years in our midst, right? Breathing our air, listening to our filthy words, seeing blasphemy in his face every single day, being resisted, being left, being betrayed. Incarnation, right? This is what it means that he emptied himself. So, as we look to Christ now, this is what he says: "As the Lord, as the Father sent me, I'm sending you." Right? So, being in a mission, being like have this Christ mindset of being going to a mission. You are investing, pouring your own life to be with the people. You will live their lives. You will live with them. You will eat their food. You will understand their language, and you're bringing the truth, the gospel to them. So this is what it means to go for missions. I think anywhere, not just the Middle East, anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the... So you move back to Egypt very soon. What are some of the things you're going to miss the most about being here? I don't mean necessarily culturally, but I know you've been quite involved with preaching, ministry, I mean, your family. What are some of the things that you will actually miss about being here?
Being well fed spiritually.
Yeah.
Because I preach, but I sit under very good preaching as well. I'll miss this very much. So many days you will just go to the church and listen, and you'll be well fed. I'll miss this. I'll miss... I didn't think we answered this question from the beginning. I miss this theological academic discussions. So now, if I have a very deep, or I have, not very deep, just a deep theological discussion that I'm thinking of, an issue, I will just knock the door of one of the scholars at PRTS, and he knows the history, he knows the debate, he knows the Bible well, and you just discuss it with him, as we discussed Romans 6 and the eschatological and the forensic and so forth. And I mentioned Tom Wright to you, and you know Tom Wright, you know Doug Moore, you know Barkley, you know the difference.
You can call me anytime.
But having these people accessible to you all the time, and you have dinner with them, you have coffee with them. These kind of people, I'll miss this. I'll miss this. Thankfully now more people are growing, more people are getting to know this. Some of them were my students, and now we have this kind of discussions. Yeah. But here it was kind of, you don't have one person. I can go to 10 persons and ask, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I'll miss this. And I will miss the quietness.
The quietness.
Yes.
Yeah, you just mentioned the
noise. Yes.
Interesting.
Because the quietness, I'll give you an example of what it means. I was doing my PhD writing in the last year, finishing my exams and so forth in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, I wrote 2 books in Arabic. I published 2 books in Arabic. I translated a book. And I kind of published my Th.M thesis. I furnished it and getting it published. So I published 3 books written, 1 translated. And now I'm revising another book while doing my PhD and doing all other stuff. Back in Egypt, if I finish a book every 2 years I would be very happy. So being quiet here, you can do lots of things. You have the luxury to just, if you are stressed, you'll just go to hike quietness and you'll hear nothing. And then you'll get your mind cleared, and then you come again and you think about it. I'll miss this.
There's nowhere in Alexandria you can just get away.
Well, I can do this if I go fishing.
If you go fishing?
Yes, so if I get a boat, because when I go fishing, we rent a boat, me and some friends, and we go deep to the sea, outside of the city, and then we're just the water, the sky, and the fish. Yeah. This is the way I would clear my mind and relax. But here, I just open the door of my house, and 1 minute I'm hiking or I'm walking, quietness, and then have an hour later or an hour, I would just go back, I'm refreshed. We don't have this. This is huge luxury I know people are taking these things here for granted.
Yeah.
No, not where I am coming from. No, I'll miss this.
Yeah.
I'll miss this because there, it is very busy, very noisy, and very demanding. The ministry is very demanding, and you see opportunities, you see chances, you see doors opened, you see challenges, struggles. It's kind of you're being in the training camp, and now you're going to the war, to the front line. It's kind of something like that.
Have you been to London?
No, never.
So that's as close as I can imagine to what you're describing. Because in, at least my experience in London, is the homes are very small, and you step right outside your door and boom, there's the street.
Yes.
Always cars going by, big red buses. Even if you, well, most people would use public transportation, but going to the suburb, there's just constant noise. It never stops.
Yes.
Even at night, there's noise.
Yes,
And you become accustomed to it.
Yes.
And you're able to sleep through it.
Oh, yeah,
And,
that's me. Yes.
Then we moved here to Grand Rapids, and it's like,
What is this? I know.
I have tinnitus. Like there's ringing in my ears. I never heard that before because it's so quiet here.
And when you hear now the smallest sound, it annoys you, and now you're alert, right? Yes. This is exactly what I experience here. Yes.
But I would, in my head at least, and I've never been to Egypt, but I'm thinking of Alexandria as perhaps another level beyond London.
Way beyond.
Especially culturally.
Oh yeah,
the
way
Brits
beyond.
are quite reserved.
Yes.
Socially.
No. Culturally, it's all very different. People are so social and very close to each other, and they would intervene in your life.
I mean, I see it in your eyes. I think there's a part of you that's very eager to get.
Oh yeah, I enjoy
this is home.
in a sense. Oh, of course, this is home. I enjoy hanging out with them and being with them. And you just open issues with the people in the streets or in the transportation. It's just like that.
Yeah.
People don't have these protective shells around them.
Yeah.
That would stop. You don't talk to me. No, I'm in my stuff. Or people are not wearing AirPods and just walking in the streets all the time. No. Some people, young men, are wearing AirPods, of course. But if you go to one of the many buses or the buses, you can find people who never met before talking about soccer or talking about politics or talking about the weather, just like that. So people are social.
Very social.
Very social. Very social. In Egypt. And this is something that I miss. The sense of humor is very, very high there.
Yeah.
Yes. So which is enjoyable too. Endless inside jokes.
See, that's another thing that would make it very hard for someone going in this as a mission field.
Yes.
So my wife was from Brazil, and when we go to Rio, where she's from,
Yes.
The rule is no English, and I just don't understand a lot of the things that are being said because it's idiomatic.
Idiomatic and inside jokes.
It's inside jokes.
Yes.
But they're very gregarious people.
Yes.
Very social, lots of conversation, talking late into the night.
Yes. Very similar to Egyptians.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Very expressive.
Very expressive. They use
passionate.
their hands and passionate. And you feel, are you angry? You're okay? You must see two Egyptians going to a restaurant and every one of them would like to treat the other.
Yeah.
You would feel a fight is going on.
Yeah.
Someone is just going to get his gun out of his pocket and shoot the other one. And you're just fighting who will pay for the other. And they love each other.
Yeah.
And it's just they're fighting. So when I meet an Egyptian in the States and we try to do this, I tell them, be careful, people will not understand us. you pay or just I'll pay. Yes.
All right. So we should probably wrap this up.
Yes.
I'd love to keep asking you many, many more questions. But what I want to do is make sure that people know how to find you and support you and get in touch with you if need be. I know we've talked about that throughout this conversation.
Yes.
Ways people might, those who might be interested in going to Egypt or considering that as a mission field, or just maybe something piqued their interest. Something we didn't talk about yet is the food. and the music.
Yes.
And
this is something also. Oh,
the beauty of the country, the landscapes.
Whoa.
So there's so many things that might be drawing people that are listening to this. But what I think the most important thing we've talked about is the work that you're doing, have been doing, and of course will be continuing on there.
Yes, Lord willing.
And if people want to get in touch with you or want to follow your work or want to donate, like where can they go? What can they do?
My Twitter account would be a good place.
We'll link to this in the description too, but if you can just tell me now.
Yes, the Twitter account.
What is it?
It's Sherif Atif. Well, this is another story. We don't use the last names in Egypt. I know here I'm known as...
I caught this in your email.
Yes, yes. Sherif Fahim is my name here.
Yeah.
But my Twitter account, let me check it how it's written. You don't look at it.
Nobody remembers their handle.
Yes.
I don't know mine.
Now, look, it is at Sherif Atif, but the name is Sherif A. Fahim, which is Sherif Atif Fahim.
Yeah, we'll link it in the description.
Yes, Sherif A. Fahim. I think the Twitter account would be a good way to follow what's going on.
People can send you a message there as well.
They can send me a direct message there, and my email. I can leave my email or an email that people can reach out to.
Okay.
Yes, this would be the best way. I don't have Facebook.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And good for you. And you disconnected at least one of the chords of the matrix. So well done.
Yes. Well, I was kicked out.
Oh.
For different reasons, and then I thought, well,
that's a great excuse.
Maybe the Lord doesn't want me there, so I said, no, I will not do I will not make another account.
I'm not going to ask questions about why. Well, that's between you and the Lord and Facebook. I just had another question for you. No, it's okay. Oh, yeah. For people watching this, what are the things that we can really be praying for you, especially any projects? You did mention the Family Bible Worship Guide,
yes,
which is in the New Testament in Arabic, but not Old Testament yet.
Not in the Old Testament yet, yes.
Okay.
We're working on this.
What's maybe one or two of the other major book projects you guys are working on?
Well, currently we are working on Holiness of God for Sproul. We are working on Providence for Piper.
Yeah.
And we're working on two other volumes for Piper, but the three main projects that I think that we need lots of prayer about: Providence, Family Worship Guide, and Holiness of God.
Okay.
These three, we need them. And pray for me for writing. I have many writing projects in Arabic that I'm writing. Hopefully I will have time to work on that too. I would love to write a commentary on Romans. There's no one Reformed commentary on Romans in Arabic.
Not even translated?
There's old one translated, but it's out of print and it's not there anymore.
Wow.
So if you'd like to have a Reformed commentary on Romans, none. If you ask me what is the greatest need for books, which would be commentaries, this is big.
In Arabic?
In Arabic. So I can spend my life just writing commentaries.
They take a long time.
They take a long time.
Not just writing, but translating them
yes.
too.
But for me, Romans, because I've been working on Romans for 8 years now, generally speaking, and for my dissertation in the last 5 years. So I already wrote a lot. I would love to see this project come to the light. And I have some projects in the Psalms as well. I wrote something on the Psalms, on the first part of the Psalm, the first 41 Psalms, and I would love to continue. It's a kind of meditations, Christ-centered meditations. And a few other theological issues that I would like to write on. So I would appreciate prayers in this, that I can have time and stamina to write. I'm, I have these ambitions, but I don't know if it will work, if it can take place or not.
We need to get people to donate a boat so you can take it out and have that as your writing platform. So you can just escape the noise of Alexandria and just sit and write. No fishing, writing.
Very hard, yes.
What about Puritan works? Are any of those being, I know I said we'd stop, but that is something I wanted to ask you about. Is Puritan works being translated into Arabic? Like if you had a choice, like top 3, what would you want translated?
I would love to see some of John Flavel being translated.
Okay.
He's very warm. And I would love to see Walter Marshall book be translated, The Gospel Mystery of Sanctification.
And you're saying this because you think these would land well with the Egyptian
Yes,
readers.
I think John Flavel very pastoral and very warm. I think it will relate to the people. People need to see how, because we don't want just to give them doctrines.
Yeah.
You need to give them something that will touch their hearts, and but at the same time, full of truth.
Yeah.
And the third name would be Goodwin, Thomas Goodwin, and
Yeah.
the same for the same reason.
Say Goodwin. Yeah.
Yes.
You spend enough time around Beaky, you have to say Goodwin.
Yes. So Goodwin, the warmth in Goodwin, the love of Christ in Goodwin, for people to taste this. Although people they talk a lot about the love of Christ, but I think it's very superficial. It's very sentimental. But again, people like Goodwin and Flavel, they can give you this warmth. It's warm, full of the love of Christ, but it's rooted on solid doctrines.
Yeah.
Rooted in truth.
Yeah.
So this mixture, to give it to the people, would be great. Currently, I'm reading something for Flavel with my family as a family worship, reading devotions, in addition to our biblical readings, of course. It's on the keeping of the heart by Flavel. And it's just a sweet, sweet book about what does it mean to keep the heart. It's very, very edifying and enjoyable to read with the children and my wife. So I would love to see such things be translated into Arabic. Yes.
I'm really glad you came in. The timing was perfect.
Thank you. I didn't feel that I can go more, but I enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
I can
you for
keep
having
talking
me.
to you. There's so much more to talk about. We tried to do this, 2 or 3 times already?
Oh yeah, it didn't work. Yes, I remember.
And we had some technical issues, and I got sick.
Yes, and now I'm done with my dissertation, which is
that's what I'm saying. The timing is perfect because I got you the day after your defense.
Yes.
When you actually remembered what you wrote.
I'm glad that this was not a month or 6 months later. It's still fresh with the names.
If that was the case, then I would be putting the pressure on you to be like, you got to publish that thing, man.
I would love to.
You need pressure.
I would say I need lots of prayers for wisdom and strength to find the right place and to get it done. I would appreciate lots of prayers because you don't need. It's already written, right?
Yeah.
So it's something. It will need just some furnishing to get it published. So and I think it will be beneficial for many pastors and leaders and theologians. I hope and pray so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you leave for Egypt on the 20th.
June 20th.
June 20th.
Yes. Yes.
We should try and get you in here before you leave.
Oh, I would
One
love
more
to.
time.
I would love to, but Egyptians, they talk a lot.
Well, I'm glad we have. Well, thanks, Sherif.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah.
It was
All
a joy
right.
to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening.